Okay, so the next presentation is from SAP. Rüdiger Fritz tells how you can connect SAP with OPC UA, efficiently leverage different systems with that. Please.
Okay, yeah. First, Juni, thank you very much that you invited me to talk here. Now I have a little bit some challenges. First challenge is maybe you're coming fresh from the break. On the other hand, it's already 4 o'clock, so you had a long day and you heard already brilliant presentations, a lot of elements. But my biggest challenge is that certainly Stefan Hoppe this morning presented already a couple of messages. So I try now 30 minutes to entertain you and give you some insights, information which might be valuable. The good thing is I am not a sales guy, not at all. I'm actually industrial engineer, leading a development team. The development team that is dealing closely with OPC UA, dealing closely with Industry 4.0 and certainly automation topics. And I promise the very first set of slides has nothing to do with SAP at all. It's maybe more a little bit a context. What do manufacturing companies have to look for? Why are we doing this OPC UA stuff? Automation is nothing new. All of you know about highly automated perfect systems. What we have seen from the pharmaceuticals and so on, everything works already, right? On the other hand, things are changing, and I just thought it's an idea to start here with some global mega trends. Certainly, mass production is what keeps business efficient. So economies of scale, I think that's the basis for our wealth. On the other hand, people are changing, asking for more individualization. You might have heard of the Adidas story that you order your shoe with exactly your size, maybe with your name on it and so on. In other areas, you don't see such products yet, but everybody has a smartphone. None of these smartphones is really personalized in terms of produced with exactly your order. And what I have in mind here, imagine you could order your next phone, Apple or Galaxy or whatever. On Amazon, you say extra 10 euros with the option that your fingerprint or any other data is burned into a chip on this phone at the moment of production. This is your individual new Galaxy phone, and somewhere on a little memory, unerasable, your fingerprint is inside. Might be an interesting use case to say, well, if in future all the phones are individualized and personalized and with no erasable memory chip inside, then no burglar and no thief any longer in 5 years from now is interested in your phone, because they can't break it. Somebody told me, maybe bad idea, then the burglars will steal your phone and your finger. But let's imagine, this is just one example where maybe mass individualization could be interesting. But for us in the automation world, how do we get from the customer order, from Amazon, Alibaba, wherever you are on the world, this tiny little information down to that printing to this machine, maybe a pick and place machine, which knows exactly on this chip I have to take now from this customer order, this hash code of this fingerprint, put it into this memory, whatever, put some paint or whatever inside so that nobody can really erase it. This is a complete process, right? From customer order, my wish is I want to have the individualized phone, and the automation has to react with these 10,000s of phones running over the conveyor belt, that exactly this phone is in the whole process chain, the one that will receive me, because if it's somewhere mixed, if it is sent to you, you can't use it because it's not your fingerprint. As just one example, and I think we find many personalized medicine, for example, Mr. Truppel. I think that is something where you're also thinking about how to get personalized individual data from something abstract like a sales order to a production order down to the real automation and the real execution. And again, nothing to do with SAP. I think this is much more challenge of modern and future-oriented factories. Same as the economy as such, as everybody knows and sees, is changing. Some of these elements are certainly from manual processing to highly automated processing that is not a complete new innovation, but in some areas you get more and more of this, right? So you see more and more the idea of lights out factories. Even in China, I have a lot of customers from China saying, okay, we have these 1 billion people. On the other hand, they more and more go away from, I solve this problem by human manual processing, because the humans are getting more and more expensive in China as well. Anyway, so this is a high level motivation for sure. But all of us, and especially you, if you are representing a manufacturing company, discrete industry, maybe more in discrete industries than maybe in process industry. If you're producing oil and gas somewhere, then it's always oil, right? So you might change from the same oil field somewhere outside. You might, after end of lifetime, you might transfer from oil to gas, but these are only two products. What I have in mind here is much more maybe a company that offers, let's take it a little bit abstract. Today I produce a green and a yellow product. Everything is perfectly optimized. All my automation assets are connected using OPC UA and so on. So green and yellow product today, but tomorrow the market changes and everybody wants blue products. Now the question is, what do I have to do in my factory to enable my complete company and my factory, my automation, to be ready for blue products? And I think that should be for us all here in the Western industrialized world a driving factor to say, certainly I can focus on perfect optimization of costs, overall equipment effectiveness, all this stuff based on OPC, based on connectivity, etc. On the other hand, I just want to give this other flavor is, let's think about at every point in time when doing automation to make it ready for flexibility. That when I do today green and yellow products, the market will come and say, I need blue products. Or yesterday I had in another speech the example, there was a glass. Today I'm perfectly optimized for small glasses. The market changes. I need to deliver big glasses. And I certainly don't want to completely build up a new assembly line or a new factory only for big glasses. That's what the automotive guys do today. There's one factory, one line only for the Volkswagen Golf. If there is a new version, then they set up a new line in parallel, right? But having a Golf, a Passat, and maybe even a BMW or whatever on the same line is almost impossible today, because everything is relatively hard-coded, I would say, as an IT guy. Processes are more or less hard-coded. And that's why I took this slide here and just copied the definition of the terms flexible and dynamic just from the Oxford Dictionary, just to think about, to say, okay, our task must be independent from SAP and from my company, also independent from Siemens and whichever company you represent, manufacturing processes, machines, workforces, the leadership, the mindset, especially of our managers, CEOs, etc., and certainly software landscape need to be much more flexible and dynamic than in the past. Here, this is a topic when you think about why should I do some processes in the cloud? I always thought, okay, you have a manufacturing execution, should be installed somewhere in my factory on premise and so on. But in some areas, it could be interesting to have for some phases, maybe even manufacturing software in the cloud. But general, this is much more the mindset thing and more for food for thought to say, yes, is whatever I do, is it for the sake of making it a little bit more hard-coded, or am I ready already to say, yes, tomorrow I produce also blue products. I don't care. It can be changed immediately. And I certainly know that never change a running system after 1 year of a perfectly running conveyor belt, assembly line, and so on. You don't dare to touch it. But that's maybe the issue, right? So when thinking from the very first moment, I know even in 1 year from now, I can easily touch this system. I can touch the configuration. I can touch the automation by means of just browsing through my tags and saying, okay, from tomorrow on, I also need this tag. From tomorrow on, I want to call this robot with a new method and so on, right? So, as I said, pretty much motivation. Now, the playground, certainly everybody knows the classical automation pyramid. I am standing here because my company deals pretty much here, certainly enterprise resource planning since 1972 and things. On the other hand, thanks to this trend of Industry 4.0, and I think it's more or less just representing similar things like I've shown before, we need to wake up a little bit. We need to wake up as manufacturing companies, as Western industrialized world to say, oh, we need to think about flexibility and dynamic changes. And inside this automation pyramid, you can certainly have perfectly hard-coded processes, right? Maybe you have, and there are many elements inside. Maybe the first challenge is to come from here, from a production order down there without paper, is already a challenge in some cases. On the other hand, you could even think further and say, when thinking about interoperability, there are processes. Oh, I forgot to translate. Ooh, sorry, Lieferanten means suppliers. So obviously it's Kunden means customers. Sorry for this mix, I just simply overlooked it. Suppliers having a direct access to your magazines. Let's say there is a machine and the supplier says, if you give me the chance to have a sensor on top of such a magazine or just a camera, I can do a kind of Kanban process for you. I monitor for you when this magazine is just half full, I do the replenishment. You don't need to care. I take care for your magazines that this is always full. Also an interesting interoperability scenario, certainly far beyond the network of my own factory, but here you could think about OPC UA enabled stuff, right? So this is something we also did it, and it works perfectly. Public internet, OPC UA server here, OPC UA client here, certificate-based authentication, totally easy and something that you can do very fast. Sorry. So the overall interoperability does not end only within the automation pyramid, but nevertheless, we certainly still have a lot of work inside this classical layering, because certainly this pyramid also tells something about the number of different entities inside. I might have a machine from Siemens, from somebody else, a KUKA device, and so on. So a big number of different devices harmonized via OPC UA. But certainly we also know it's not only about interoperability. Many machine vendors say, oh, I have a brilliant machine, and by the way, here's my control software, here's my SCADA system for this machine. And then suddenly you have 5 different SCADA systems inside. So it's also a challenge to, you remember this slide before with these software landscapes, which are not that easy. And again, I'm not talking as a sales guy, I'm more talking about as an enthusiast for doing automation and thinking about how do we need to touch our systems overall, how do we need to enable our manufacturing and factories to be flexible and competitive. I mean, here in the room, I hope that this video never makes it to China, but actually our challenge is to be faster than China. Okay, so this is the first slide where my little employer is mentioned. What I want to express here, yes, we do a little bit more than usually often perceived. Many people outside think we are doing just this classical enterprise resource planning, but actually there are processes and installations. A key, for example, there's a company that where's my key actually? In my room, sorry. My classical key for my home is a perfect lot size 1 product, hopefully, right? So it hopefully doesn't match at my neighbor. And certainly a simple key is just a tiny little piece of metal, but it has all the counterparts, the locking system. So everything needs to match in this lot size 1. Here is my key and here is my locking system at the door. Also something where you have here the management of what was the order? Is it for a big hotel? Is it just a standard key system and so on? And going down to the automation. So we are in many, Harley Davidson, for example, is produced with manufacturing execution from SAP and many other things. Back from SAP, forget about it. I deliberately took out here our company name because I thought this is much more an interesting slide for reuse to think about the classical patterns that we have to solve. We all together, enthusiasts for automation. I think the 90% case is here on this left side, this thing, I call it notification scenario. Somewhere machine, sensor, measurement data. Somewhere here a business system, business-like system. So the manufacturing execution, the enterprise resource planning, or even the supplier, right? So the example, watching the magazine. From the sensor perspective, you get a measurement, a new value, an event, a counter, and more or less a kind of fire and forget. Technically, could be kind of pops up, but mainly legacy is certainly much more client-server thing. Value changes. It goes, in our case here, to something like an gateway, which could say, okay, let it be a classical temperature. Below 20 degrees, I don't care. Beyond 20 degrees, I have to inform somebody. Inform somebody could be anything. Is it just recording a time series for doing the big data story, right? The measuring and analyzing over ages. Or do I need to run in a transaction? So from 25 degrees on, I need to order flowers for my wife because I'm the maintenance engineer and I know if this machine is so hot, I will spend the night to repair it. Could be a transaction, why not, right? So actually, it is just about saying notification scenario, relatively simple. On the other hand, I'm absolutely sure a lot of work in many cases if I have here a brownfield, an old machine, and so on. The other side, the query scenario is, as I'm an IT guy, when I dealt first with this area, I thought, okay, it's pretty much like having a simple database access. Select machine status from table. Unfortunately, these machines are not really like databases in many cases. So as you know, we have here in worst case, an old legacy protocol where I have to define the telegram to send the telegram to the machine. Please tell me your state, and the response is another 100 characters. In this other 100 characters response, I have somewhere at the 20th position I know about the state of the machine. Fortunately, with OPC Unified Architecture, I know there is somewhere a data field which tells me this machine is right now running. And scenarios could be certainly, as a supervisor, I start in the morning my dashboard and say, which of my 10 machines are right now running? And this is something where you would say, this is a query scenario. The middle one, this is also what Stefan mentioned this morning. I call it business context-driven control loops. And I think there is a lot of potential. For you, many of you are, I think, automation engineers. A control loop is nothing new, right? You have the input values, the sensor values, do a calculation, and then you come to the actor. So if here is 25 degrees, then open the cooling line and so on. So classical control loops on automation level. But if you have these control loops inside your logic controller code, it's certainly pretty much predictable. It's coded that you say, okay, temperature beyond 25 degrees, open the cooling system. Right? Cooling starts, physical things. But imagine I need for this decision something that might reside here, that might reside, let's go back to our example with the mobile phone. I have 20 orders, 19 of these orders are standard ones without this extra service of having the individualized fingerprint. So order 1 comes, go ahead, do the stuff. Order number 17 is mine. Now I'm here with order number 17 in front of this pick and place machine, and the pick and place machine has to say, oh, order number 17, that was this extra order where this fingerprint has to be burnt in. This was this order of Rüdiger, and I need to check where here somewhere in this order system do I have the file with the hash code of Rüdiger's fingerprint. And that's what I meant here with these control loops of saying, I get the signal from the automation. Order number 17 is here in front of the pick and place machine. Shall I do standard or shall I do the special one? Right? And this is why I say business context is something like, okay, he ordered the special service of burnt-in fingerprint. I can react immediately. Actually, this was technically possible already 5, 10, 20 years ago, but a tough work, more or less a hard-coded work to do these things. Now having any kind of machine talking the same language to me as the stupid IT guy is getting something, okay, I can start to talk a kind of business English with this machine. I get a dedicated signal, an OPC UA text that changes. I am in front of the gate to the pick and place machine. I get somewhere maybe in a text the RFID reading that is somewhere on my phone, saying, this is order number 17. 2 tags, which I get and can say, oh, here in this level of the gateway, I configure, dear gateway, go and ask for this order for the specific details. Is it a standard order, yes or no? If it is a standard order, go ahead, dear automation. If it is not a standard order, open the gate, go left to this extra process for, this was by the way right, so go right for the extra process for doing the individualized chip, right? So, and absolutely sure that in many scenarios in your business, you will find areas where you could think about, okay, I enable my automation for this kind of flexibility. Because then I can say, this is not the hard-coded conveyor belt that only makes the standard phones. It is also the same assembly line that doesn't care if there are coming 10,000 standard phones and one extra phone, right? Because you always could say, I know this context. And now you might say, oh, if this event occurs here, I get the information. I want to know, is it a special order or not? Going all the way to the slow SAP guys with a big enterprise resource planning, which might right now take care for the year-end closing. It doesn't want to get 10,000 requests per second from machines. How do we solve this? And here, this were a written buffer. We simply could say the physical event that my phone is on its way to this decision point here, this takes already some time. The physical way, that's, by the way, also the photo that Stefan has shown. So when such a carrier here is on its way to do something, and that could be similar like this decision point, shall I do the extra order or not? Let's assume I sent this carrier to a position somewhere here to do something, and this physical way is already something that I could use to acquire the data that I need for this decision. Right? So we just say, this information that I need later is the next order that is coming, a special one or none, is already acquired when I start here. And when this carrier here, these fast movers arrive here, the memory of my gateway knows this already. Right? So the response, am I a special order, is already known at this point in time when my carrier arrives. I think I have a little bit better depiction here, if I remember correctly. This one, yeah, that's what I wanted to say, just to say, let's take the shortcut. I think, question? Oh, 5 minutes to go. I'm going out of time. But you got the idea that these business context-driven control loops are very interesting. Fortunately, this one is where I can just refer to this morning when Stefan talked about this service-oriented architecture thing, right? Of saying, this decision point saying, I am here as a carrier and I'm arrived. Now, what shall the robot do? Shall it go left or shall it go right? Is, on the one hand, this decoupled business contracts-driven control loop. On the other hand, what you wanted to express this morning, Stefan, was this robot is just a kind of service provider. The robot can do multiple things. It is certainly teach for jobs. It can do this job, but it can also do that job. And the question which job to call is maybe dependent on this business context, on the order details. This job for the standard order, this job extra check for the extra quality picky customer check. And that's what I want to express here, that we can configure such a sequence in a kind of soft logic controller. We are not doing here the physical stuff, right? In this setup, I don't tell the robot now start the motor of axis 1 and do 2 rounds and so on. It's much more the robot knows I can offer a service. Which service, the job number? Shall I do service job number 1, this one? Or shall I do job number 2, this one? And exactly this decision could be dependent on my order details. Master data, bill of material, all these things could be the influencing factor. To speed up a little bit, so Audi is doing this as an example, very intensive of saying, okay, I have my factory, I don't have a conveyor belt any longer. Certainly, still conveyor belt assembly lines are the most efficient way, of the most takt time, and you can fully optimize it. But this idea here is the most flexible one of saying, I have a station, a service station where I can install the wheels, and I have a service station where I can install the seats. And I don't care if I install the wheels for the Audi A3 or install the wheels for the Audi A4. Both A3 and A4, that's their vision. Certainly it's not ready everywhere yet, but there are already implementations and live running things. So Audi e-tron, the engine, the powertrain of the Audi e-tron is exactly factoried with this idea, with this approach, having autonomous guided vehicles which bring the work to the stations. And then it's about, then we come back to the world of IT where it is, and we did it in Hannover and so on, but the IT world gives already, that's what you do in enterprise resource planning since ages, to define this routing. It's saying, let's say operation 100 is installing the hood of the car, operation 135 is installing the wheels, and operation 130 is installing the seats. For the wheels I maybe have one station, for the seats I can choose between two stations, C or D. For one order it might be relatively simple because one production order has, in such an example, one graph. So if I start here with installing the hood for my new Audi whatever A3, I can decide, shall I go first to the wheels, shall I go first to the seats? A simple directed graph. If we go from the perspective of many orders at the same time in a factory with many devices, so I forgot, was this seats and this wheels anyway, seat station, wheel station, all connected, OPC UA, live data on a near close sub-second basis. And I need this live connection and sub-second basis for managing this complexity. This is going then close to artificial intelligence to make ad hoc decisions on a second basis. Because imagine here, if, and then I'm almost done, although I could talk hours, if this station is down at this point in time, I certainly want to reshuffle and say, okay, maybe I need 10 minutes to set this station up. The maintenance engineer is coming and fixing some things, but in the same time, while this is down, I could send some of my vehicles to the seat station and catch up with the time later. Right? So unforeseen, as always, human beings and also enterprise resource planning systems are planning, and the gods are laughing and saying, haha, I spoil your plan, this station is down, take a new decision, right? And here I think there's a lot of potential, independent from SAP, for many of us to say, use OPC is my ears and eyes into the reality, and now we are combining this with artificial intelligence stuff, taking the data that I anyway know, master data, bill of material, order details, and so on. And then we are soon in the way to solve even such a complexity so that I can always do something, right? Picking out for such a production issue, the mathematical best option is really tough calculations that can take hours, but the algorithms exist to give you in 10 seconds a good solution. Quick keyword here, Monte Carlo tree search approaches and so on. You might have heard about AlphaGo, so Google beats the Go champions, chess computers, and so on. Anyway, time is unfortunately almost up. I would have had a couple of more stories, like talking about reuse of, or Umati, Andreas talked about the companion specifications. Here it's for the machine tools with some dedicated use cases that I want to represent. Here I would have shown, if I would have time, so what are scenarios where plugging into manufacturing execution, into an enterprise resource planning. I would have shown how user interfaces would look like, and from overall equipment effectiveness, but even much more, and this is then again a little bit the domain of an SAP to make this planning board, knowing certainly here's a machine breakdown, now a human being is reshuffling, and so on. Yeah, I want to be in time. Anyway, the slides are distributed, I think, so, and the name is known, contact me. Again, I'm not so much talking as an SAP guy, I hope you recognize it. I'm talking much more as an enthusiast to motivate us all to say, we do not do OPC just for, I have done OPC UA, so I have the new Gucci bag. So no. It's about enabling us for flexibility. And then we are getting competitive as industrialized companies and industrialized countries. So yeah, that now time is really up, and thanks for listening to me and staying awake. So I'm looking forward to all your brilliant implementations in your factories and your environment. Thanks again, Uni, that you allowed me to talk.